Hey, my name is Ramirez, Frogmare. You can call me Rami or Ogie. Um, so, title of this video is called Satanismo. I named it in Spanish because why not? All you need to do is add an O at the end. But to broaden the topic, it's this is going to be kind of a discussion on Biden's newest hire and how it relates to also coddling and pandering. Now, let's think this through out, right? I think I should just play the video. I should just play the first video just to give some context before anybody just misses out on what I'm trying to say here. Is it in Borders? Yes, okay.
Dr. Dmitry Daskalaki was hired and spoke to the world today during a press briefing at the White House as the monkeypox response deputy coordinator. That's all fine and good until you see some of his photos flying around. The memes are now everywhere. This is weird, and it follows a trend in Biden's staff being, well, non-traditional, we'll call it. My mama would call it inappropriate. Mama's always right. I don't know many people like this, but you might say I need to get out more, but
So, let's the first level of discussion. Describing the fact that there's been this repeating pattern in the administration. Now, to normal people, it's unrelated, random, but to anybody who's been paying attention as far back as 2010, if you've been paying attention to Julian Assange, if you've been paying attention to the original allegations against Hillary Clinton back in 2010 that were made by the Department of Homeland Security, if you've been paying attention at all, you've also been realizing that the Democratic Party has this unknown side of itself that not very many people are privy to, this being one of them. But if we take into account what's been said by people like Malvi Buddha, what's been said about Pizzagate, what's been said about Pedogate, what's been said about religious cult orders, what's been said about what was his name, Daniel Quintus? He was like he was the head of like some navy. He had an official naval position with the United States Navy, and there were allegations levied against him that related to the Satanist panic back in the 80s, and it involved a daycare center here in Los Angeles. There's been this repeating pattern of people who have this very peculiar set of beliefs, and it's been a reoccurring pattern, right? Now, in today's age, I think most people would be like, oh no, they're just pandering. It's the elites. They're making fun of us because XYZ, they believe that we believe in this and this and that, right? But in reality, when you look at what now Satanism, by what you see on the Satanist church here in Los Angeles, or Satanism in what you see that's propagated in front of us, that's like pop culture. That doesn't really mean anything. Because these aren't actual practitioners or people who actually believe in this stuff. When you start believing in this stuff, you start playing inversionist. You start taking what's natural and you start inverting it. It's why you see men turning into women and women turning into men. That is an aspect of inversion. A great example of this is turning men and making them behave as women, and taking women and making them behave as men. In a cultural standpoint, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the physical or in the flesh. It could also be inversions of ideas, inversions of beliefs. But this recurring pattern has been coincidental, quote unquote. And let's actually show the next video. It's right here.
Biden's newest hire sure has an interesting social media presence. Get the full story and many more images at the national.
Right? Why hire this individual? Why put him in this position of power? Now, the way I see it is, it's their way of making fun of us. It's their way of you've identified, right? I don't know how many people have been actually kept track of this, but I keep track of things as if this was like a revolutionary movement or something like that. I keep track of it in terms of where is your faction, what has your faction done, and what movements do each faction make or do. So an example of this would be Carl Schwab and Bretton Woods, the control of the dollar, the control of the economic future. But yet, on the other inverse side of things, we have Russia, China, India, South Africa. We have BRICS, is what I'm trying to say. We have these two different economical forces who want to make influence over the world. And these are two different factions because Carl Schwab represents NATO. And if you know anything about NATO and how they're treating Russia right now, it would be a very telling sign. That's if you can follow the logistical thinking of it. Now, with what happened at 2015 and 2016, and with one of my most favorite Trump speeches where he calls out Hillary and the bishop that is sitting next to her, it's like a dinner, it makes it very clear that there is one side of the aisle that has very crazy belief systems. And normal people right now would love to be like, that doesn't mean anything. It's not real. It's just his social media. It's just his private life. But you clearly forget that what was said in 2016 about Pizzagate, which was people made a clear correlation between this behavior of abusing of children with people who believe in this particular subset of religion. And if you look into any of the literature that involves rituals, and I'm not talking about the stuff that you buy at Barnes and Noble. I'm not talking about the stuff that you buy on the internet. I'm talking about the real cultic knowledge that you actually have to deep dive into and look for. It's not very easy. And again, it gets into the control systems of why religion is viewed the way it's viewed, and why you can't view it outside of these big three, right? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. When in reality, if you dig in deeper into any of these religions, you'll find a consistent. It's very difficult for me to say this because I feel like if I give too much away, I can point people to the right direction. And that's not something I want to do. That is not something I want levied against my soul. Considering the fact that all magic systems are based on, we'll say, Christianity. And either way, back to the original topic at hand with Satanism. It's like, why hire him? Out of everybody else you could have hired, why him? And considering with what's going on around the world, with people waking up, with people realizing that this scandemic was largely a lie, and the scandemic is largely affecting only one side of group of people. It's like, I think my favorite was him rehiring Podesta. The fact that Podesta is back working at the White House, a part of the Biden administration, was the biggest cherry on top, because now we actively are seeing them make fun of us. They're actively putting it in people's faces, and you can't even talk about it, because anybody normal who you bring up the topics of pedogate, you're met with a very large amount of hostility because they were pandered and coddled with the media, with their talking heads, and it's very difficult to accept the fact that you're telling me that this has been going on for decades. No, this has been going on for hundreds of years, and it's not everyone. It's only the people who are a part of the, what do you call it, the royal arts? They call it the royal arts. In reality, it's just the magic systems that they took from Aleister Crowley. But people, I just don't know what to say, because to me it's like, wow, they're just putting it in our face at this point, because it's right. It's one side who wants to say that, oh, you're just taking things out of context, or you're looking too much into this, and you're feeding too much into this, blah 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 blah. But in reality, it's just like, if you've paid attention from as early as 2014 to today, you'd realize that this isn't an isolated event. This is far larger than you think. For me, this started with a veteran who was trying to donate food and clothes to the homeless, who ends up getting told that there's a homeless camp at this abandoned cement factory. He goes visits this abandoned cement factory, and what he discovers is so horrifying to him that it makes no sense. Because the homeless, he eventually, the story goes, he gets there, the homeless people tell him, you shouldn't go over to the building. We were just kicked out. The cartels are there. And he was like, what are they doing there? And the homeless tell him, they're trafficking. But trafficking what? And eventually he goes back to that abandoned cement factory, and what he discovers are straps attached to trees. He discovers articles of clothing on the branches. He discovers a very interesting site. From that site, he discovers more sites, and the more sites he discovers, he figures out that it's not just the abandoned cement factory. There were like these underground little bunkers that were dug out, where you could clearly tell that there were toys, there were articles of clothing, and that's where it all started for me, because I wanted to make sense of what's all this about? What's the importance here of this? Which led me to understand the logistics side of moving people, doing all that stuff. And then by the time, right, I'm following this, next thing you know, Pizzagate pops off. But by the time I catch on to what's going on with Pizzagate, it's when the guy shoots the hard drive, right? When the guy with the AR walks to the pizza place, walks inside, immediately walks to a door and shoots through the door, literally putting a bullet through the original hard drive that was in that computer. And it's just like, are these just a weird series of coincidences that we're watching? Or are we watching, how do I say this? Right, with me bringing up that original video of Evil Genes, which is a book by, I can't remember the lady's name, but she essentially describes in that book that there are no studies on people who have no frontal cortex development in the sense of sympathy. And with these people who are more than likely to act in ways that are not conducive to normal behavior, right? Torturing puppies, torturing animals, that sort of behavior. These people will get together, and they'll actively, they have the ability to tell, right? The devil recognizes his own. It's that they can recognize each other. They can recognize that, like, oh, you're also pretending to be along with this? Oh, okay, cool. And it reminds me of Robert David Steele when he said that there are these positions of power that offer accessibility to certain things that these people know and value, and will actively go out of their way to make sure that they assimilate themselves into these power structures so that they can attain this power, obtain this status in order for them to continue their abuses. So when I watch the Biden administration hire Podesta, hire this weird freak, and they both have these really weird symbolic posts, right? I think with Podesta, it was when he has his two hands and there's numbers and a fish on the other one. And it's just like, what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this weird belief system? And then you get into the fact that if there is this really weird religion that we aren't aware of, these weird practices, these weird religions, right? Bohemian Grove, we're not told about the reality of the situation. In reality, most people will be coddled by the message that they receive, which is usually from mainstream media, which tells them, oh no, go back to sleep. These people are just looking too much into this. They're misguided. They don't know exactly what they're looking into. You know, using that language that affirms whatever belief system the populace already has. But now more than ever, it's getting very difficult for them to hide that, which is why I believe in Q being a psyop, and I believe in Q being a net positive, not a net negative, because a net negative would have put people back to sleep. A net negative would have repeated what we saw with Pizzagate. A net negative would have seen the demonization, the taking away of bank accounts, not allowing certain lip service to exist anymore on television or public broadcasting stations. But instead, that's not what we saw. What developed out of that entire situation was a war that you could actively see in politics, that you could actively see play out between lobbyist groups, local government, state government, federal government, lobbyist groups, politicians, senators, representatives, intelligence committees. We saw levels of our government get weaponized to such degrees that it became impossible to believe that this was normal and this was just, Orange Man is so bad, we need to do something about this. And now we're stuck in the rhetoric of blaming everything on one particular side of the aisle, which they want to blame the words that we currently use, right? They want to use the current labels that we have. In this case, it would be Jews. And I'm looking at it like, are you kidding me? These people don't even believe that they're that. These people are just, they don't even believe in their own genetics. They don't even believe in the religion. Now we're going to use these broad label terms that are affirmations and the coddling of the reality of evangelicals. This all fits into that's why I absolutely hate evangelicals, because Revelations, the end times, apocalypse, it's we all are playing along a game that was designed for us and designed with gates in mind to make sure that you never go beyond certain belief systems. And just watching it now develop this far ahead, where we saw Podesta get rehired and now we have this weird other freak inside the office. Amazing to see. Either way, my name is Ramirez. Frog Bear. Hopefully this doesn't get too lost in the weeds. Either way, thanks for watching.